Hello, I'm Cherry Potts and this is the Arachneversary, a video a day approximately throughout August to celebrate our 8th anniversary. And this is The Other Side of Sleep, which was our first ever poetry book, and like many things to do with Arachne Press or my life in general, was started off by a fit of pique because I got rather fed up of seeing poetry competitions and call-outs that said less than 40 lines. And I thought, what if you write long, thin poems? Because I know quite a lot of people who do. What if you have more to say than that? And I thought, do a bit of research. The most popular books of poetry seem to be anthologies of narrative poems, the nation's favourite poems, those kind of books sold awfully well, and about 60% of the poems in those books are narrative, which means they're long. So clearly there was a market, so I thought, you know what, let's give this a go, let's see what people have got. And it was quite early on in our existence, and it was the first time we'd done poetry, so submissions were sluggish at the beginning, so I did an initial cut and there really wasn't enough, and so I wrote to all of those poets and said, really rate you, who do you know who's as good as you are, who writes this kind of thing? So they helped and found me more people. So we ended up with 25 poems which break the rules, starting with the no more than 40 lines rule. They're long. They take their time. Sometimes they tell a story, sometimes it's a bit more oblique than that, but there's a vague sort of narrative drive to them. And some of them are very long indeed. Brian Johnston's poem in this, Robinson, goes on 4 pages and is absolutely stunning. Really and truly, it's a sort of linked 7 or so poems, and we had quite a few like that. Emma Lee's Voices After a Tsunami, again, is linked narratives. And then some of them are incredibly complicated in the way they're laid out. Had a lot of trouble with some of them. There was one that we really thought we probably couldn't, because the poet had done it on A4 and it just didn't work in this format. So we had long conversations about how big I could make the breaks between the words, and it still work for him and still make sense on this size page. We worked it out eventually. So it was quite a learning curve for me in many ways, but my goodness, we had fun with it. And we also had fun with the launch, because by that time we'd worked with a number of cover designers, and I'd been thinking it would be kind of nice to do an art show of work by our cover designers, and so I invited them to see whether they were interested. One of them wasn't, but everybody else was. So we hired a gallery for a week and had the exhibition and combined the private view with the launch for the book. And it worked incredibly well, because it meant that in the interval, as well as buying books and drinking wine, people had things to look at. We did actually sell a couple of pictures, which was very nice for the artists. And I was really happy with how that launch went. Really happy. It was kind of relaxing. I'm not normally relaxed at launch, but that one was relaxing. And everybody was lovely to each other, and we just had a whale of a time, basically. Now, this book is deep discounted because I printed far too many. Oops. So you can have this for £5. It's been a £5 for a while, so it's not discounted in our August sale, because if we take another £1 off, then I'm selling it at less than it cost to produce. So, the cover is by Zoe Lee. Zoe doesn't do book covers anymore because she's moved into the world of gaming design, on internet, that kind of stuff. But she did me such a beautiful ruff for this. I was quite shocked when the final item arrived. Because at first glance it was so different, and I sort of panicked a bit and thought, oh no, this won't do at all. And then, last thing at night, woke up next morning, had another look, thought, actually this is darn clever. And had to sort of say, can we redo this very slightly, just because the bedding was a bit feminine. That was really all. And that was really easy for her to do, because what she does is she makes these tiny little models, a bit like architects' models, with using real elements and paper, and then photographs them, because we were very much keen on shadows. So this is a real shadow, it's not been painted in, so it's brilliant. And once I got used to the idea that this is what the cover looked like, I absolutely love it. And it tells a story in the way that the poems do. This one is illustrating the title poem, The Other Side of Sleep, which has a horned god in it. I want to say he's a minotaur, but I don't think he is. Most of our poets are from the UK in this book, although we had a smattering of people from the Netherlands, courtesy of Kate Foley, who now lives there, who put the call out to people she knew, so that we have 3 or 4 Dutch poets in here too, which is extremely nice. And we have republished pretty much everybody who's in this book. It was a really good introduction to who's out there and writing at the time. And more than half of the poets that are in here we have republished multiple times, or indeed published collections by them. So it was a good call for us as a way of introducing us to the poetry world and the poetry world to us. Anyway, £5, bargain. Really and truly, this should be being taught in schools, but as we know, poetry is off the flaming curriculum, isn't it? What do we think about that, folks? Answers on a postcard. Okay, thanks for listening.
Some years ago I was commissioned to write a poem for the civil ceremony of 2 very dear friends, and this is the poem I wrote. I need to tell you a little bit about the background, and I need you to do a bit of work. So first of all, their names were Aidan and Douglas, so A and D, and it was in 2006, so I called the poem Naming AD 2006. And in the first part of the poem I've hidden their names. So listen out, and you will, if you're clever, you will hear the name Aidan, Douglas, Juno, which is the name of their dog, and Druminane, which is the name of their house. If I get to the sentence, so words and names can be concealed in sentences, and you haven't found them, you'll know that you've missed them, and therefore you'll have to buy the book. Okay, that's the first note to mention. And the second is, I don't know whether you realise, and I don't know whether it's changed in the last few years, but when civil ceremonies came in, it was absolutely forbidden to have any religious content at all. So you couldn't have a prayer, you couldn't have a Bible reading, which seemed to me potty, but never mind. And so I was under because it was going to be at the civil ceremony, which incidentally was in a very romantic Scottish castle. It was a wonderful event. I had to get religion in by the back door. And I did it by using Dante. And you'll notice right at the end there's a quotation from the end of Paradiso, which is L'amor che muove il sole e l'altra stella, the love that moves the sun and the other stars, which is one of the most wonderful sentences in poetry, I think. So, with that preamble, I'll read the poem. It's in 3 parts, but you don't need to know that. Listen for the names. Each knew he'd made another friend, but didn't realise this time it was for life. In cultivating this relationship, they'd both dug lasting treasure. Do you know the name of their faithful dog? They live near the kirk, up the hill from the Firth of Forth. There's nothing humdrum, inane or ordinary about their house, alive with conversation, argument and laughter. A winter garden full of candlelight, a summer house that sways between the trees. Do you know the name of their dog? Aidan, Douglas, Drummondane and Juno, all spoken, woven in a skein and hidden. So words and names can be concealed in sentences that don't relate to their reality. There was a time, not very long ago, when love like this led only to denial. Those who were joined were rudely torn apart. A satisfying synthesis like this between the law and art was then impossible. That night has passed. New light has dawned, in which we recognise at last that we should not conceal, apologise or blush, but celebrate this love that dares to speak its name. Taboos have changed, and now other linguistic limitations constrain our civil ceremonies. Words and sacred names prohibited that otherwise might play a part in defining and in dedicating what is done today. So I will not utter any name as I call down blessings, pour libations, burn the sacred flame. My lips will speak of Plato's Eros. I'll expound Hindu mythology, and while eschewing hymns long sung at football grounds, I'll add my music to the song of songs. And as appropriate epithalamium for this commitment, I'll pause to contemplate l'amor che muove il sole e l'altra stella, confident that Dante can be quoted without blame. We'll bless this partnership and celebrate an even greater love that dares to speak its name.
It's winter. Basil's death has grown white and quiet as a whisker of frost. Still no dreams, or none he'll tell. But Tracy, obstinate as ever, still hopes, still chants, still watches his deep, unfathomable sleep, as if he were written in ancient, undeciphered script. My sleeping tablet, his pet name for her. They're both eroding gently. His life, her fierce certainties. Though dreamless, blessed in the dark halls of sleep, Basil must sometimes, between deep and shallow, wake to memory. Had he been a gardener, wood might have bent and bloomed for him. A kind of blossom once curled from the plain, the smooth, dense, left behind of made by hand, close as he ever came to leaf or bud. How can you dream of sawdust? But pine, yellow or white, or the rich, rose-coloured dust of mahogany, Basil dreams their drift on the floor in the clean smell of resin, and bees thread through his sleep tiny saws. Irritably he swats his forehead. Pests, he mumbles. What? Bees. Where? In my workshop. Must have left the window. Bees? He's been dreaming. Such rich symbolism. Stand yearns for immortality, the great mother, messages she knew if she waited. Baz, she spoons his soup. Those bees you dreamt? Give it a rest, Trace. I told you, not dreamed, remembered.
I went to the market and I bought an avocado, plump, shiny green outside and knife-yielding, soft and buttery within. A buttery knife, ivory effect handle, blade more for spreading than cutting. A candlestick, a centerpiece for blushing glow. A damask cloth, white and starched, a canvas for the feast. An envelope, thick, creamy paper, enfolding just words of love. Freesias, frail, yellow and white, scent gently filling a room for two. Glasses, for filling, fizzing, clinking, sipping. A handkerchief, lace-edged with a bluebell stitched in one corner. Ink, in a squat bottle, purply blue, the colour of lovelorn. A jug, elegant glass, etched with a swirl for water to offset the wine. A kimono, cream silk with black edging, to wear before and after undress. A locket, to hold a picture or lock of someone's hair. Meats, to glisten on skewers and glisten on the dish. Napkins, neatly folded to gently dab on lips and chin. Oranges, round and smiling to float in slices and caramel, or freshly squeezed if breakfast comes.
The festival is over. One by one the statues quicken on their plinths, abandon all repose, and covering their costumes, slope off, singly or in pairs, towards the pub where they will be a talking point. All afternoon the actors have dissembled, standing stock still, while people poked and teased or, shrieking with feigned terror, ran away at the merest gesture from the fingers sprayed into black or gold or silver-painted pose. Now there remains just one. At first she played the part of playing a part, rewarded the watching child with surreptitious wink, or beckoned with one finger to another, careful not to let her actions coincide with cues. People like to work out what it is that is controlling you. The intervals grow longer. Hours, not minutes, pass, the moment never right, and children who gravely gaze up at her red-rimmed eyes, set in the purest white, give up and go off after easier prey. She waits for the summer night to look away, so that she can stretch her heavy limbs, her eyelids heavier still, and as the milky morning turns to gold and dusky pink, her mantle settles into marble folds. The months and seasons turn. In the city square, no one remembers how the alabaster queen arrived among them. With yells and shouts, children climb the creases of her clothes. Dogs sniff her ankles, cock their legs. Office workers gossip over lunch. Lovers whisper secrets. None can hear the buried heart that beats beneath her breast. She has her lovers too. She knows them, not by name, but by the words they carve that glow upon her stone-cold skin. Thick as dusty ink, or spider-thin, graffiti crawls across her arms and chest, and she absorbs its stain. The trees are in full leaf once more. The festival returns with beating drums, and strings of flags are fluttering on the fence that lean towards the sleeping statue. Crowds cheer the clowns, shriek at the tinfoil rain that falls on shiny upturned faces out of a sunny sky, applaud the jugglers and the acrobats. The world has turned its back on her, neglects to check for signs of life. But on the ground, groping between the bars to reach a coin, a boy feels a tremor run beneath his hand and sees the pavement crack. He cries. Under the marble sheets, a woman with no voice struggles vainly to give birth. Her legs are tied.
In retail, open brackets, XX, III, close brackets. Good morning. Do you have an Advantage card? And would you like a bag? Please, enter your PIN. Good morning. Thank you for waiting. Do you have an Advantage card? And would you like a bag? Please, enter your PIN. Good morning. Thank you for waiting. No one's answering the bell. Do you have an Advantage card? And would you like a bag? Please, enter your PIN. Good morning. Thank you for waiting. No one's answering the bell. They're all at a meeting without me. Do you have an Advantage card? And would you like a bag? Please, enter your PIN. Good morning. Thank you for waiting. No one's answering the bell. They're all at a meeting without me. Seems I'm the only one left in the shop. Do you have an Advantage card? And would you like a bag? Please, enter your PIN. Good morning. Thank you for waiting. No one's answering the bell. They're all at a meeting without me. Seems I'm the only one left in the shop. I could find myself with a riot on my hands. Do you have an Advantage card? And would you like a bag? Please enter your PIN. Morning. Thank you for waiting. No one's answering the bell. They're all at a party without me. Seems I'm the only one left in the ship. I could find myself with a riot on my hands. Yes, you're right. It isn't good enough, is it? Do you have an Advantage card? And would you like a bag? Please, enter your PIN. Morning. Thank you for belling. No one's answering the wait. And there's another party without me. Seems I'm the only one left in the world. I could find myself with blood on my hands. Yes, you're right. It isn't God enough, is it? You would have to talk to my mother. Have you taken the Advantage? And do you need a nose bag? Please, enter your pain.
Troy, 7 Voices by Jennifer A. McGowan. Patroclus. Gold is heavy and chafes. Still, the fear of who I'm not is effective. The desperate pause as I approach, making the thrust easy, and then the soft sibilance of blood on the ground. Who'd have thought one dice game and a teenage crush would lead to these endless forays against the walls, this skilled impersonation? I've done more than 50, I bet. My arm is almost tired. I stretch as Chiron taught us, crack my neck and stride forward. At last, Hector, Greek soldier. All we wanted was to get a glimpse of her, the one we'd come for. The one made fools of kings and warriors of farmers. Each morning before dawn, before the light could betray us, we'd scan the walls and the tower windows for a sight. We never got one. Throughout the years of fighting, these years of boy into man, we dreamed. Silently to each other, we'd relate our stories of her. The way she'd look sideways and knees that never knew fear would buckle. How her eyes shone like lightning and burned. And how, at the end, the one we'd all come to, we'd hear quiet footsteps, and the white fingers that closed our eyes would be soft as feather down, and one bright tear would be our swan song. Scamander. I have carried this weary leaf from hoary mountain slopes over rocks, past thirsty roots and wading herons, past shoals of trout, silver-scaled, to this broad plain. Now my waters swell to flood, armour and keepsakes sink. I bring the detritus of flesh with its seeping red to the receiving sea, where all burdens are absorbed and nameless.
Now, looking back on that scene from my childhood, my thoughts are with those on the porch and their talk. The subject was grave, I know, and surmised that it concerned money and bills and a recent divorce. How carefree we were, playing hide-and-go-seek in the dark and catching some fireflies to put in a jar, except that we never collected enough for the lamp of continuous light that folklore assured us was easily made. A night in July, the darkness so thick it could catch in your hair, we caught lightning bugs, adults on the porch making grown-up red dots that glowed and then faded. Our parents sat in the darkening twilight, in the heat of Midwestern July, a porch of a farmhouse with the smell of hay in the air, hay and mown grass, and cornfields that baked in the heat of the day, cornfields where at night you can hear the corn grow, so they say. We play our games in the gathering dusk, but what are they saying there on the porch? That is the reason we came here today, whatever they're saying. It wasn't because we wanted to play in the cool of the evening. It wasn't because we wanted to romp with the dog or catch fireflies. The talk is in earnest about jobs, getting advice, kicking around some ideas, what to do next, which way to turn. The children, of course, the job's not ideal, but the hours, but then, whereas, however, although, but I heard none of that. No, nothing at all, because I was about 6 and had no idea what grown-ups discussed in the cool of the evening. Seated on the veranda of the old farmhouse, the smell of the hay barn around us perfuming the night, I romped with the dog and hid in the lilacs. Bumblebee, bumblebee, all come in free. They heard our shouts and our laughter. They knew we were safe and playing nearby. We were part of the planning, whatever it was, oblivious as we were to it all. Perhaps they were glad we knew nothing of what they were talking about. Childhood is a place where you don't have to know what worries adults.